You want to make your footage look a little bit more cinematic? Use an anamorphic crop.
Hi friends, welcome back. So today I want to talk about something that I haven't really seen anyone address in any kind of a meaningful way, and that is overlaying block bars on top of your video to make it appear more cinematic. I'm gonna tell you why I don't think it's always such a good idea, and hopefully also shed some light on some of the possible reasons behind this common misconception. If you are new here, my name is Vadim, and I'm a filmmaker based in Denver, Colorado, and this channel is where I explore and document the creative process. Alright, so let's talk about widescreen. I'm sure you have probably seen some of your favorite YouTubers do this.
You want to make your footage look a little bit more cinematic? Use an anamorphic crop. Just stick on some crop bars, it's really easy.
If you search YouTube for videos on how to make your own work appear more cinematic, almost every single one of them will tell you that overlaying black letterbox bars on top of your video will mimic the aspect ratio of Hollywood films, and thus make your video instantly more cinematic and professional looking. But does it really? Or are you in fact making it worse? To answer this, first we need to go back in time just for a moment and explore the history of aspect ratios and why widescreen was invented in the first place. Bear with me, this is important, I promise. You see, for the first 50 or 60 years of their existence, almost all movies were shot in a 4:3 aspect ratio, which was the format of a standard 35mm film frame. That includes some of the most iconic and respected films of all time, such as Citizen Kane, Casablanca, Sunset Boulevard, I mean the list goes on and on. Not only were these films in the 4:3 format, but they weren't even in color, and yet they're considered to be incredibly cinematic. That's because the directors and cinematographers who worked on these films were true craftsmen, and what made their work look so great was a combination of lighting, composition, and camera movement, as well as production design. Then, in the 1950s and 60s, when television sets became more affordable and almost every family in America had one, people started to spend more time at home rather than going to the movie theaters. So the studios were forced to innovate and come up with new ways to get people out to see movies on the big screen again. And that's when most of the widescreen formats that we're familiar with today were invented. The film studios gave people something they couldn't experience at home, a wider, larger-than-life image to make the experience of watching the film on the big screen much more immersive. And it worked. Many of the films from that era stand out because of their stunning cinematography that was masterfully crafted to take advantage of the widescreen aspect ratio. You simply couldn't experience the full scope of those images at home on your small 4:3 TV screen. By the way, I know that movie studios experimented with a variety of different aspect ratios and widescreen formats during that time, but for the sake of simplicity, we don't need to go into all of that here. So let's fast forward to the home video era of the 1980s and 90s. And then eventually to present day. This is how most of us grew up experiencing these movies, whether it was watching them on TV or VHS tapes, and later on DVDs, Blu-rays, and streaming services. And when properly formatted to fit our TV screens, these epic Hollywood blockbusters had black bars on the top and bottom of the frame. So we learned to associate that with a cinematic look. And that's why so many aspiring filmmakers feel that adding bars on top of their videos will mimic that look, and thus make their own videos appear to be more cinematic. So that's all well and good, but let me tell you why I disagree with this approach and find it somewhat misleading, particularly on YouTube. You see, I'm a big believer that whatever media you create should be in a format that is appropriate for the way it's going to be displayed and consumed. For example, remember when smartphone cameras became popular and people started shooting videos in vertical format? Some people, particularly the traditional filmmakers and those from an older generation, got all up in arms about it, because vertical video format goes against everything we have been taught about the way motion pictures should look. It just seemed absolutely wrong and sacrilegious. But what we failed to realize is that our actual way of consuming media was changing. As social media became popular, more and more people started to use their smartphones and other mobile devices as their main media creation and consumption tool. And for this purpose, vertical video format actually makes perfect ergonomic and visual sense. We obviously hold our phones vertically in our hands the majority of the time, so while we're scrolling through all those social media feeds, it totally makes sense to watch videos and photos in vertical aspect ratio to take maximum advantage of that screen space. Now, would you use vertical video format if you are making a narrative film that is intended to be watched in theaters or even just on your home TV screen? Probably not. So this brings us back to YouTube and those fake letterbox bars that everyone seems to love. Even the biggest YouTubers that we look up to are doing it, so it must be a good idea, right? Well, think about who your audience is and how they're going to be consuming your work, and you'll understand where I'm going with this. The truth is that most people who will watch your videos will be watching them on their mobile devices, phones, tablets, or laptop computers. A smaller fraction, myself included, might actually watch them on their TVs. But I think it's fair to say that unless you're making an actual narrative film intended for theatrical distribution, chances are that the majority of your work will not be projected on a 50-foot movie theater screen. So why would you want to take that precious resolution and screen real estate and make it even smaller for your audience? The idea is that those letterbox bars will make your video frame look wider, and thus more epic and cinematic in scope. But in reality, it's the opposite. You're simply cropping the top and bottom of your frame and throwing away that valuable image information. So instead of trying to mimic that Hollywood look by cropping your video and using that fake widescreen effect, I would really recommend instead focusing on your cinematography and lighting and framing and the composition and overall just your storytelling techniques. That will make you a much better filmmaker. But if you still really want to have that 21:9 aspect ratio, for example, if you're making a short film or a music video or something that is possibly going to be projected on a bigger screen, then at least make sure that you're actually editing your video in a 21:9 timeline and not just using those black bars to overlay on top of your 16:9 image. At least that way, people who actually have 21:9 monitors and TV screens will be able to see your image fill their entire screen. If you're not sure how to do this or what I'm talking about, you can do a search on YouTube and there are plenty of videos that explain this process. Finally, and this is really important, let me just say that I didn't mean to throw shade at any of the YouTubers and content creators and people I talked about in this video. All of the examples I showed earlier, I'm a big fan of their work, and all I really wanted to do with this video is just kind of educate and encourage people to use the format that fits the kind of content they create the best. So, what did you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. And also, if you liked this video and found it informative, please like and consider subscribing so that you will not miss out on any future videos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.